What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Alright soldiers, so we are here with a deck profile that we have not done in quite some time. So in this video, we're going to be looking at Natura Forestcraft because Sekka is one of the cards that are going to be into this deck that actually has some good applications to it, because there are a lot of followers and or cards that we can look for that are 2 or less that we can really find that helps out our deck. Alright, so let's go ahead and kind of transition into the new cards that are coming out in this most recent set, so that being 12 and 13 combined, of course. These are the new cards that are going to be coming out in this recent combined set that really do help out the deck a whole bunch. So like with the newer card, we have Awakened Gaia, which is an 11 cost 5/5. It costs 5 less to play for every 5 Natura cards in your cemetery, but when it comes to play, select them from the field and destroy it. Now, we'll be honest that some people can actually run this into their builds, but with the build that I'm going for, I'm not actually going to be running it. But if you do want to consider having more removal for the deck, I do highly recommend this card. And then looking at the next card, so we have Intertwined Resolve. So it's a 1-cost spell card, so you can choose one of the 2 abilities. You can either put a Natura card from your field into its own EX area, select enemy fall on the field, and then deal it 3 damage, or you can summon 2 fairy tokens. So of course, when we're playing the Natura deck, and that's what we are going to be talking about, we're only going to be looking at that one ability. So being able to put any Natura card from our field into our EX area to either play again to go for combo, or to get some more value off of followers that we might not want removed off the field. Alright, and then lastly, we have Spring Leaf Sprite. So it's a 1-cost 1/2. So when it comes into play, put in a Tier and Great Tree token into your EX area. And when this card leaves the field, you put in a Tier and Great Tree token into your EX area. And even with this 2-card combo, we're able to generate a lot of value for ourselves. So with the Spring Leaf Sprite and Intertwined Resolve, we're actually able to put the Spring Leaf Sprite back into EX area, spawn a whole bunch of Natura and Great Trees so we can keep playing them, to either go for a Latica Stoneclaw play, or we can just start filtering our deck to find cards that we need. Alright, so let's look at our other supporting cards that are in the neutral class. So we have Natura Almachinus, which is the 5-cost 4/4 legendary. So when this card is discarded by a Natura and Great Tree token onto your field, you can select a Natura card not named Natura Almachinus in your cemetery and add it to your hand. But it also has a fanfare that really does have more of a Machina effect, but we do get to put a repair mode token into our EX area while also recovering 3 play points. Alright, so this legendary does have its merits in this deck just because you're able to go ahead and discard this off of an Natura and Great Tree and get any Natura card from our cemetery and add it to our hand, which has its applications because when we filter a whole bunch with these Natura and Great Trees, there might be some situations where we might want a card back from our cemetery. And then we have another GOAT 1-cost, so we have Changewind Cherub. So she's a 1-cost 1/1, you can evolve for 1, but when she comes into play, you put a repair mode or a Natura and Great Tree token into your EX area. So she's definitely going to be helping out with Cook and the Spriteful Sprite, which is going to be pretty helpful when spawning the 2 Great Trees for 1. Alright, and then lastly, we have Traveler's Respite. So it's a 1-cost spell, so you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you may reveal a Wasteland or Natura card from among them and add it to your hand. You put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order, and if it's a Wasteland card on your field or in your EX area, you can give it +1 defense. Alright, so I do believe one of the things that the deck did have a problem with was finding cards that you didn't have to pitch. So with the Natura and Great Trees, of course, we're going to be drawing a card and discarding a card. Unless we discard Trail of Light, which is honestly the optimal play when going for Natura and Great Tree tokens, then we're definitely going to be not really minusing 1, but we're not plussing at all. So being able to just find a card to +1 in hand in some way, or finding more value to get the pieces that we need in our deck are going to be helpful. Alright, so getting into the deck profile itself. So of course I will be including the deck code in the description below, so check that out if you want to. I do want to let you know that this is just a good basis. I will not say take this to a regional. This is not the best list of Natura. I will say this is pretty solid because I do like how this deck really operates. Any deck that honestly has Trail of Light, in my opinion, is a really good deck just because it draws extra cards and that gives you more access to seeing nuts in your deck. And I do want to know that we are not going to be going over every single card here, don't get me wrong, but we are going to talk about these key cards like Sekka and stuff like that that really do pair up very nicely in this deck. Alright, so looking at Sekka, of course, you know, she is the 1-cost for a lot of Forestcraft decks that we're going to be seeing a lot. So being able to look at the top 3 for any Forestcraft card that costs 2 or less and add it to our hand, that lets us get our Ghastly Treant, that lets us get the spell card if we want to, that also gets us the Intertwined Resolve, or the Spriteful Sprite, or Spring Leaf Sprite, excuse me, just in case you need to really hit some gas on turn 2. Alright, and if you soldiers don't exactly know how Natura Forest works and you might be coming in after the combined sets or whatnot, I do have a covering of Inverse Academy where we did talk about Natura Forest. And one of the other things that I really do like on this deck is that you're not only threatening just one piece of Storm with Lydia Stoneclaw play, but you're also threatening so much with more of the Sekka as well. So if you can get the Sekka up really big with all the spell cards that you're able to see, and of course we're going to be filtering a whole bunch, and with the advanced card we're going to be getting the Resolve from the Cemetery if we need to. If we have those extra play points, we're going to be going in for some big damage with Sekka and then Stoneclaw right afterwards. Alright, so one of the problems that I did have in the deck was the amount of removal that was in this deck. So of course we have lots of options, don't get me wrong, but we're not doing any hard removal. So when we get into our late game with Lydia Stoneclaw, and you know, of course, as the smart player, we're not going to run our Lydia Stoneclaw into our opponent if they have 3+ play points up. But when we do play out our followers and then they just have a massive board wipe or they have the hard removal next turn, that's something we really don't have access to in this deck. We're kind of pinging them down with whatever numbers that we have, that being either through send them packing with however big Lydia Stoneclaw is, or we're only going to be pinging something for 3 with Intertwined Resolve as long as we have the Natura card on field, or if we have Resolve of the Nine-Tailed Fox, where if our Sekka has the X amount of attack, of course, then that's how much damage we are going to be doing to a follower. And I know some of you soldiers out there saying Sparta, well, of course, Awakened Gaia is just hard removal on Fanfare. Well, I'm going to be honest, if we're going to be running Sekka, we're going to be removing cards from our cemetery. So cards like Spinario, Keeper of the End, where we're going to be banishing 3 cards from our cemetery, and then getting 2 followers on the field while also being able to heal. I think I would prefer to have some heal and drain and then having some defense while drawing a card, rather than having a big 1-cost follower that does turn into a 5/5 that removes the follower off field. But yeah, soldiers, I think this is a pretty solid list. If anyone has any like sort of recommendations in terms of how we can twist this around and, you know, add a little more spice to it, let me know. But, you know, this deck is still kind of linear. I do like how most of the new cards like Sekka and, you know, the Spinaria are cards that we can just throw into here and it kind of works. Like I was saying in the last video with Inverse Academy, of course, Sekka is going to be seen a lot this set just because she does what a lot of decks need to be doing. You can find any 2 or less Forcecraft card and then adding it to your hand. So there's lots of options when going for that turn 1 play. Now, before I run off and take off here, I do want to let you soldiers know that there are some options that I would change around for budget. So Natura Almachinus is a very, I wouldn't say super pricey card, but if you're kind of getting new into Shadowverse Evolved, looking at this card's price isn't going to feel very justifiable because I know this isn't a lot of players' first play game, or at least their first played card game. It's kind of like their secondary game, so kind of shelling out for maybe like, I'd say, what is it, like $50 for 3 of Natura Almachinuses, and you're not really sure how Natura works, and on the fact that Sekka might be a little pricier right now just because the set did just come out. I'm just only thinking of budget because, you know, as myself, I like to keep it as low to the ground and close to my wallet as I can when playing card games. But of course, if you want to have a lot of success, you're going to need these bigger cards just so you're able to see victory in a lot of these decks. But if I had to recommend some secondary options, here are some things that I would highly recommend. Alright, so I know Natura Almachinus is a very good card for the deck when being discarded, so you're able to add another card back, but having card removal isn't really bad for the deck on top of the Viridian Magnet being an option too. I know she might be a little bit still pricey, but she is a very nice alternative if you do want to think about going the Natura route, just because her last words is able to banish an Eterean Great Tree from your EX area, and you don't have to have it on field when able to go for her last words evolve effect. And yes, even though she only turns into a 4/4 with Lord, which isn't too crazy when you go for the 4 play point play, but being able to heal 2 and then having that big strong defense for your opponent might be a little impending depending on the situation you might be in. Alright, and the last card I would say is some tech that I would want to talk about is Pure Shot Angel. This card really does do a lot that you want to do in terms of like having some removal. So being able to ping a follower for 3 on Fanfare and then evolving, doing another follower for 3, maybe the same one, and doing a total of 6, and then running a 6/6 into another follower, or if there's only 2 followers on the field that are 3/3, you can keep the 6/6 up and your opponent might have a little bit harder time removing this card. But alright soldiers, that wasn't my goal to really talk your head off in this video. These are just some things that I'd wanted you soldiers to think about. And of course I want this to be a good source of hub information for Shadowverse Evolved. So if you have any updates or any upgrades to this deck that I might not know about because I'm not a huge Force Crafter, or even when I do play Force Craft, I'm more of like a fairy player. So if you are a Natura enthusiast and you really want this deck to really be good, or even be the best that it possibly can, please drop in your recommendations in the comments below and we can work on this deck together. But alrighty, soldiers, that is all that I have for you today. We are going to be talking about another Forestcraft video in tomorrow's video, and it will be Thanksgiving tomorrow, so might be busy. I might be busy. But, you know, happy Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you soldiers tomorrow, and of course I will be pinging around in those posts to let you soldiers know that it is a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I am very thankful for you. But alright, soldiers, make sure you are safe in whatever you do tonight, and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do.